and very much looking forward to seeing, this will be interactive as well. So I'll be sharing, industry insights that we have, um, and also wanting to get a sense of, how you guys are seeing AI and what experience you have using it. So at a very high level, at Kaizentree, what we do is we help brands automate their inventory and operations. Right now, we're helping automate over $500 million of inventory across all our different customers. And so we do that through um, an inventory software that we have, which is best in class for traceability. And we also do that by implementing AI agents into their operations. And so what I'll talk about today is, first of all, let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. All right, here we go. So what I'll talk about today is, what are the things that you can kind of get away with doing on ChatGPT, and then what are the more complex workflows where we see brands, struggle or often not know how to do them internally, where it justifies, uh, you know, working with someone to kind of develop those things. And I'll speak to what it is that we specialize in doing because there's only, there's a certain focus that we have in how we're implementing. So to get started, it's going to give a high level overview of AI agents. I'm sure everyone here is going to be very familiar with them. But just in case so we're all on the same page, I'm going to be going over this. So, at a very high level, AI agents are essentially, autonomous systems that can take action for you. And you can think of it as, taking, layering on different tools and different ChatGPT actions into a sequence, where it's essentially able to replace a lot of the work that you might be doing today manually. Um, and so where ChatGPT is something that you very often need to trigger. ChatGPT is very good for asking questions, sharing data, asking for insights. I'm sure maybe many people here might be using it to craft emails. It can be useful for looking at supplier documents, contracts, things like this. Um, AI agents are useful for workflows that involve lots of different steps. So one that I will go into is purchase order processing, and a few others. But so, the real way to think about something like ChatGPT and an AI agent is that, ChatGPT is a conversation that you're having, sharing information, getting insights, whereas AI agents are, is a workflow automation that's replacing something that you're doing within your operations today. A big one that we do is purchase order processing. And again, I'll go into the details of how that functions in a moment. So within AI agents, there's several different formats that we see. The ones that we'll be focusing on today are the operational ones. But we see a whole bunch of use cases around customer support, around doing research and analysis, and also around making decisions. Where actually ChatGPT is very good at, or any kind of chatbot like this, particularly GPT, is good for decision support and doing research and analysis. So to get started, I'd love to know who here is currently using AI in their operations in one way or another.
We would love for you to jump in the chat and just let us know, like, if you are, which tools that you're using, if you're using
Yeah.
ChatGPT, if you're using Gemini, if you've been experimenting with um, any other tools that have come up. See Jared using ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, note-taking is a great use case for all these things. I know that I'm very often using it. And I have certain sequences set up to create all the necessary follow-up emails from conversations. That's definitely very useful. I see people using Fireflies. Actually, I'd also recommend Granola. I don't know if anyone's heard of Granola, but that's a very good tool that we use. We originally used Fireflies and swapped to them. Um,
ChatGPT mainly for research and communication.
so Granola is for note-taking. Yeah, we've seen it to be much better than Fireflies, and some other tools that we had tested. Yeah. And I'm curious. So
There's the link
for
for it too.
awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jordan. Um, Also, we're in no way endorsed by granola. I'm just sharing that. It's a very cool tool that we've come across and very much enjoy using. All right, so for um, Jared, so a few people here I'm seeing that are using ChatGPT and Claude. Would love to know what is it that you're actually using it for. So Andrea, I saw you wrote ChatGPT and Claude, but not for operations. What is it that you're currently using some of these tools for?
Jenna wrote for research and communication related
Mhm.
issues.
Oh, hi, this is Andrea. Yeah, mostly for like research or to draft um, marketing posts or trouble not like troubleshooting, but like reviewing pitch decks and things like that, like more like marketing related
Mhm.
activities, but nothing operations.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people are not using it for operation. I've used it for reviewing order information to kind of uncover trends before, or understanding like purchase frequency for certain customers, um, kind of in the early days.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, email editing is definitely a big one. Yeah, job posts, I've done that as well. Big one I also sometimes use it for maybe kind of guiltily is LinkedIn posts. Though I always try to make it look non-AI written, but I'm seeing so many people that are just posting LinkedIn slop, I would say. Um, and
That happens a
okay,
lot.
interesting. Is anyone here actually using it for operations yet? Or seems like right now, no one's using AI for operations at this time.
Sounds like not now.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. And so this is a perfect lineup for my next question, which is, what is it that you want to automate within your operations? Sort of, what is it that you're curious to see on this call, whether you could do it or not.
That's to go and Rishi said
Hmm
taking PDFs of invoices into their accounts payable system more on the finance
hmm
side.
hmm
Like
Rishi,
for
I'm curious
me,
what are you doing for or I was just curious for Rishi, what are you doing for like purchase orders?
Yeah, right now that's all very manual, right? And it's pretty much we review weekly, for example, our inventory stack, and we decide, okay, we want to order XYZ across these three locations. We have to reach out to the co-man, with a PO, and that's a 6 to 8 week lead time, and so it's all very like look at your Google Sheets, make some decisions, then take a template of an email, dump some info in that, and kind of shoot it over.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. Very standard. Andrea,
This
Sure.
you
is
were gonna say
for this is for when you're buying like raw materials and packaging and things like this, essentially.
It's both that as well as like we do sort of more turnkey finished goods production. So
Okay.
we'll basically say, we want X amount of this finished good, Y amount of that. And so that's how, we're sending essentially a PDF purchase order.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Andrea, you were gonna
Um,
add something as well. I just saw you were curious what areas AI would be best suited for.
mhm,
yeah, I was curious to learn from you guys, like what are the kind of use cases that you've seen
mhm,
AI apply for in operations? But I mean, I was thinking about things like automating email responses or I know there's specific tools for email sequences, but I don't know, maybe
mhm,
automating reminders and things like
mhm,
that. I'm not sure what is possible
mhm.
or if everything is possible.
Great. Any other
I
things that people want to know?
Yeah, I've got one that I've been wondering if this is automatable. So our 3PL almost daily will email us to say this order that came through WooCommerce has the wrong zip code or the wrong city, and so the address needs to be changed. And so they're able to typically fix it on their side, but they're basically emailing us to tell us, hey, this is wrong. And
Hmm.
then we go through a process where we submit a ticket to our offshore um, customer service group and basically say,
Hmm.
hey, this order has the wrong zip code. Here's the WooCommerce like identifier order number.
Hmm.
Here's the fix that needs to be implemented. And then they essentially go into the system and like overwrite the mistake.
Hmm.
And I wonder if, at minimum, like if there's a way to set up a agent that can essentially take in the 3PL email, which is the warning, right? And then, or the trigger, and then essentially turning that into a templatized ticket that goes back to the CS agents.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'll go over that. Um, any other things that people would love or are curious to know whether it is possible to automate?
Cool. I don't see any yet, so let's
Okay,
keep
well, if
going.
anything else comes up, just put it in the chat or call it out and we can talk through it. Okay, so Rishi, you mentioned in the chat as well, taking PDF invoices into your accounts payable system.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So that's something that is sort of already kind of happening.
Okay, got it, got it.
So don't worry about that one.
Okay, got it, got it. So it seems like the one here to really talk through right now is the 3PL one. And I'll go into some more in a moment. But yeah, just speaking to your 3PL piece, I think I'm going to show something a bit later on, which will make this a lot more clear, but that does fall under actually a lot of what we do automate, which is kind of under this purchase order processing, which when I say purchase order, I mean sale order. We see sometimes brands call these things purchase orders. But essentially, whenever a brand, you're getting an order from a distributor, from a B2B customer on maybe it's through Fair, maybe it's something that's coming in through Shopify, or a lot of the time coming in via email, where someone's emailing you saying, "Hey, can I order this?" Um, so that is a big thing that we do automate. And so, what you're talking about here of taking in a 3PL email and sort of pulling that data, is that coming in as an email with a PDF, or is the information in the like body of the email?
The info's in the body of the email.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's even more straightforward then. Yeah. So essentially, one, so just to understand, so you would want to set up something where you can have an agent read the emails as they're coming in. Do they always have the same subject line?
I believe so.
Okay.
Uh, I believe so, but
Okay.
I'd have to dig.
And I'm curious, so you mentioned like the big issue here is incorrect zip codes. Is that correct?
It can be anything from zip code to city. So like
Yeah.
I've seen something, it's listed as whatever, Sarasota, Florida, but really it's some
Hmm.
subdivision of that. And so it
Okay.
needs to be changed, to make it work within the FedEx system.
Okay. So essentially, there's a number of locations where your 3PL can deliver. And so when there's an incorrect zip code, it's not necessarily that the customer put it in incorrectly, it's just that you don't deliver there, or is it that it's like
No, I think it's
data?
like typos,
Okay.
customer like driven typos. And obviously
Okay.
there's, on the WooCommerce side, we can sort of force some things to be,
Hmm.
customer led, like, hey, this
Hmm.
doesn't show up in a system or whatever for a zip code, for
Hmm.
example. But it seems like a lot of address issues continue to kind of trickle through.
Interesting. How often is that happening, would you say?
I probably see one, I don't know, on average, like maybe not one a day, but not too far off from that.
Okay. Okay. And so I assume like when that happens, that's sort of like delaying the fulfillment because now you got to deal with it through the 3PL and then you have
Yeah.
customer service people kind of like manually correct it. Do they ever have to reach out to the customers or is it really just about updating the data back,
I
like
think
resyncing it back into e-commerce?
yeah, I would say most of the time it's just updating the data. Like
Okay.
3PL kind of figures out what's going on.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
And I'm curious, like, are there any checks on WooCommerce that could prevent this as well that you've looked into? Or is it like, is there a way to catch that before the distributor? Or is it always the distributor that is doing that check? Because we do see a lot of times there's errors that are coming in. that are being flagged by a certain party, but a lot of them can actually be caught at the source, whether, often then we see that with Shopify, but um, I'm
Yeah,
sure
I mean, we're definitely
commerce.
exploring that side, but the fact that it's been an ongoing problem for months, and the fact that it's
Yeah.
not solved on the WooCommerce side makes me
Yeah.
think that they're not going to get their act together.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, based on what you described, it does seem, a very straightforward thing to automate. Essentially ingesting emails and then sending out triggered alerts or tickets.
Hmm.
Um, Particularly since the subject line is the same and the body is where the information is. So this kind of, let's call this, an email. Is it being sent out as an email or is it being put into another platform?
It is, we get an email and we then send out an email to a different company. Yeah. So
Okay.
we don't have to enter into a
Okay,
platform.
got it. Yeah, so just for everyone else listening, so this is like a fairly common flow that we see where there's so much information that's coming at you via email, and a lot of this information that's coming in, will trigger a repetitive action on your side. In this case, it's taking in a 3PL alert for an issue and then sending out an email. We see that same thing very often with shipment updates, where someone is getting a shipment update via email, and then that's getting entered into Google Sheets, or they're getting, someone saying, hey, so and so, I want to order these things, and sending you like an order that they want to place. Again, someone has to check that and then put that into a certain system. So any kind of information that goes from email to another spot is a very common use case that we do see. And Rishi, I'll follow up with you later with some suggestions on how to automate that. But just to confirm, that is definitely something that, along the lines of what we see, many people wanting to automate.
Awesome.
Information coming in via email,
Cool.
and then we see that where the destination will be, another email. The most common one we see is actually information that needs to get entered into a spreadsheet. We see so many operators that are, bogged down in Google Sheets or Excel, using that as for all their forecasting, production planning, shipment tracking, and the amount of time that goes in to maintaining those documents or those spreadsheets is enormous and increases as you grow. Um, and so a big part of where AI is relevant in operations isn't actually turning your spreadsheet into a living document that's updated in real time, where you or your team does not even have to worry about, entering anything, just fully focused on improving the quality of the forecast or on making decisions on the forecast, which I'll go into a bit more as well. All right, so I mean, I spoke to this already to some extent, but these are the big things that we see people wanting to automate. I'm curious, does anyone here sell on Fair?
Yes.
All right.
I do
So
as
one
well.
thing. Okay, cool. Sorry, who is that?
This is Sasha. I
Oh,
own
hey, Sasha.
A&F's Popeyes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I saw you pitch at the Naturally New York
Yep, that was me.
event. Awesome. Very
Didn't
cool.
win, but pitched my ass off.
Yeah, no, it's very cool to see. It's very cool to see. And so um yeah, so I would say, one thing with Fair that we see is a lot of time the shipment tracking, like Fair triggers the invoicing when you put the shipment links in. And so as you get more orders on Fair, that's, more time that someone has to spend putting in the tracking links. And so we, have several brands that are doing substantial volume there. And it like there's so many parts of the operations that are really just repetitive, moving information from one system to another, where kind of shipment tracking link into Fair is a big part of that, from what we see. Um, and then, things like processing these orders. Again, I'll go into that into depth. And then data entry into spreadsheets. We see companies that, they'll be paying for a Sin 7 or for a NetSuite or for whatever, but their entire team is still operating out of Google Sheets for forecasting and for all kinds of operational reporting. And so they're just double entering the data, which is ridiculous, across their tools. And so big, use case for that we see for AI agents is in syncing your tools as well. Um, and so let me move forward here. Okay, so one thing on ChatGPT that can be useful, not just for operations, but there's even a few other use cases that people mention that they're currently using it for, where it could be relevant, is in creating a GPT. Has anyone created a GPT before?
I've created GPTs.
Okay.
Jenna has.
Okay. So it seems like this might be a new thing for a lot of people. All right. Awesome. So a GPT is basically, if you can imagine, again, I'm taking ChatGPT as an example here, but you can do this same thing, for example, with Grok as well. Um, but essentially, imagine, I'll actually just shift my screen share. So give me a second. Um, all right, can everybody see? No, it's not sharing the correct one. Sorry. One moment. Okay,
Cool. You can see it now.
I think you can all see that now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this is a GPT. Essentially, what it is you're basically t taking like a ChatGPT conversation, and you're just giving it a lot more context and instructions. So it's like you're creating like to some extent like an agent. And so one thing that you can do is create several ChatGPT like GPTs for all the different things that you need to do. So for example, let me just pull up the chat here. Talking through some of the earlier use cases, there was people saying that they use it to write emails and to create job posts. So, essentially in a GPT, there's certain things here. So if you give it a name, you can give it a description. These things don't really matter. What matters are the instructions here. Um, and you can enter some conversation starters. That's mostly irrelevant. So main thing is the instructions and the knowledge base. So again, I'll pick a very simple one. Let's say that you are using this, you want to do this to write a, LinkedIn post. You could give it instructions, you're a LinkedIn post writer, and here's a bunch of files showing good examples of LinkedIn posts that I love and my writing style. And you can give it all the kinds of instructions that you would as if you were hiring someone to write these LinkedIn posts for you. And then it would go ahead and you can ask it, you could give it some rough ideas and it would turn that into a beautiful post. The same thing is true for things in the operational side. In this case, I created something called, that I called a forecasting pulse. Um, Let me just make sure that my screen is moving accordingly. Hang on. Awesome. Okay, you should be all able to see this other one, which is like, a SKU performance analyst. Hang on, is that still showing? Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, showing a Scoop performance
Sorry,
analyst.
I've got multiple monitors here, so I just need to make sure that I'm sharing the right one. Awesome. So basically, for any kinds of reporting that you're doing, um, you can actually set up a GPT where you're saying, hey, you're an operational analyst focused on um, reading these distributor reports and telling me and just summarizing the data. And then you can, say, so you can specify what the inputs are. You can specify, the required outputs that you want it to do for you. And then you can give it some formatting rules, as if you were training someone to do it. And think of it this way, where each GPT you want to have it do one very specific thing. So you want the instructions that you give it to be incredibly detailed, and specific to that one thing you want it to do, whether it's taking in some kind of report that you receive and then giving you some analysis, or maybe there's, a repetitive document that you have to generate sometimes. You can use a GPT for that. And so the two use cases here that I set up are, SKU performance analyst, where you give it some of your SKU sales data, and it'll give you some summaries on your SKU performance. So this would be relevant if you have a ton of SKUs. Um, and then here another one, which is just a forecasting pulse. So here it's, essentially you would feed it recent sales data, current inventory counts, lead times, minimum order quantities, your desired safety stock levels, any, other information here. And then, this is what It's going to calculate for you, and then this is the output that it will give you. And so you can train this to do whatever you want, and then it's very cool because then you can do this every time you have that certain you need to make that certain report or calculate something in particular or do some kind of analysis. You can just have a GPT that is already set up to do that. And so we have a number of these set up internally for us to help with our some of the day-to-day work that we do in kind of not in what we automate, but just sort of in our own day-to-day company running. And it's very helpful. Like I have one of these set up for blog posts, for LinkedIn, for so many things. Um, and so it's something that we do recommend using and looking into and exploring. Granted, the key issue here, which is the key issue that you'll see with most AI automation, is that there are certainly potential risks for mistakes in calculations. Now, that has gone down, but that's still a big risk. And so we recommend it mostly for doing kind of qualitative analysis more than quantitative analysis. Um, and this is where any kind of workflows that you want to automate where data is being moved, that's where you really want to make sure you have a human in the loop. And so I'll get into some of the more complex flows that we come across. But so these two are, very basic things that you could automate, and I'll share the links with you um, over here. Or actually, sorry, I'll send them over after, along with some instructions on how to actually set up your own one. And if you have any questions with this, feel free to just reach out. But I think the big thing here is, you can upload your own knowledge base, and so it'll know all the context that you know. And that makes these things very useful. All right, so now in terms of more complex workflows, so I'm going to show, one of the main thing that we're helping brands with. Well, there's really two things that we focus on, but the first one that I touched on is purchase order processing. So this is when you're getting sales from different places and you need to process those orders, essentially going like the order for everything from receiving an order to invoicing that order. Um, and so, just at a high level here, you can see that this is a workflow that involves many different steps. What I was showing you on the GPT is a workflow where you're setting up, giving information to so in this case ChatGPT about what you're going to feed it, the outputs you expect, and it'll just be something where you give it data and it'll spit out something for you. Um, this is something where you're actually integrating a whole bunch of different tools like Shopify, like Sun7, Google Sheets, Gmail, and actually it is replacing or delivering a substantial cost time saving because it's replacing you or someone having to do this. Um, so over here, what we see is that, there'll be brands that are getting orders from wholesale platforms. A moment ago I asked about Faire. So Faire is one of those wholesale platforms that we see a lot of brands using. I came across another one recently, I believe it was called Edible Marketplace, which, a brand is working on getting or currently on getting a ton of orders, but it doesn't integrate to Shopify. And so someone's manually entering the Shopify orders or those orders into Shopify. And we see so many brands that are selling across disconnected platforms where someone is spending more increasing amounts of time entering that data into whatever system they're using. But so at a high level here, orders are coming in from EDI, such as SPS, from email, and from wholesale platforms. The status quo that we see within almost every company is that, there might, depending on the size, but, some of these things will be automated, but the vast majority will not be. And the bigger the brand, the more time is lost pulling orders. And so depending on where that data is coming from, we have, our AI agent, JP, can fetch that information. And then the first, like in the same way that you would, let's say if you're manually entering information about an order, and then the first thing that it does is it actually can validate the order for you. So for example, checking, is this emailed purchase order, does it meet your minimum order quantities? Are the SKUs still active? Things like, is the pricing accurate? Sometimes we'll see brands get an order from a distributor where the order is placed for a lower amount than it should be because the distributor thinks it's on promotion, but really the SKU is not meant to be in promotion on that month. And so all of these checks that someone or maybe you would normally be doing are things that AI can automate and that many brands are already automating. And so whenever there's an issue, let's say you get an order and the minimum order quantity is not met, you'll get an alert and then that is resynced accordingly. The next check that is possible is to, validate, do you even have enough inventory to order to ship this order out? Um, where, that might involve checking data against a Google Sheet, against a 3PL system, against something like Sin7, and then flagging with you, hey, this order does not have enough stock. You don't have enough stock to fulfill that order. And then, the agent will suggest whether you should back order it or split ship it depending on the order itself. And then from there, it's also possible to be sending a confirmation email to the relevant customer. Obviously, the data will get synced into your system of record. So this might be, Shopify. Sometimes we see brands want all the orders to be going into Shopify because Shopify is then connected to their other systems. We often see Sin7, NetSuite, but the main one actually is Google Sheets that we come across. Um, I'm curious, who here is using Google Sheets to run their inventory at the moment for, managing the inventory and doing their analysis? Interesting. So maybe another question, what tools are you guys using today to manage your inventory and operations? Is it, Sin7? Is it spreadsheets? Some other tool? If you could just put the name on the chat, I can speak to that directly.
It sounds like a few using Google Sheets.
Mhm.
Andrew using Monday. Okay.
Okay. And how many of you are having to manually enter information, or let's say repetitive information, into your spreadsheet or into, let's say, like Sage 50? I saw Jeff, you put that. Maybe if you can put in, if you guys are having to manually enter information, I'd be curious to know what is it that you're entering or populating into these systems, which is not currently automated. Okay. Mhm. So Rishi, is this like a inventory data? Is that like stock on hand data? And what kind of data is that and where is it coming from?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, current stock on hand, we
Hmm.
our process is we set a specific time of the week.
Hmm.
We check all our locations because it's sort of real-time data, and
Hmm.
then with that, we enter it into our sheet, and that basically,
Hmm.
shows us what turned, what's available, and then from there we run our calcs on okay, what do we need to order, and
Okay.
what are our weeks on hand and all that kind of info.
Okay. And Andrea, is it similar thing for you? I saw you also mentioned inventory updates.
Yeah, similar. Just we get reports from our warehouse.
Hmm.
Um, and then obviously we need to deduct like orders that come
Hmm.
in or things that are
Hmm.
moved to other locations
Hmm.
and so on. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And how much time would you say you're spending on that on a monthly basis?
A lot. Yeah,
Like
I
10
mean, I would
hours,
say like
20 hours?
well, let's just say we spend at least 2 to 3 hours each week
Okay.
updating. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone here that spends, is that similar to what other people here are spending? Is there anyone that spends more than that? I'm curious, what on specifically? Where's that time being spent on?
Emily mentioned my business is a
Yeah,
bit
that's fine.
different, but a lot of pulling numbers off of Shopify and putting them in Excel sheets.
Yeah, yeah. And so what are you doing on those Excel sheets, Emily? Is that for just tracking stock on hand and doing forecasting?
No, so well, we a lot of it is for fresh bagels, so it's like
Okay.
what's ordered for like the next day, and we
Yeah.
for locations, and we have to make that. Like our
Hmm.
because our product is frozen, so the inventory is not that deal for our CPGs, but we do a there's a lot of production figuring for our retail stores.
Okay. Okay. So it's basically for like the production planning piece of your retail stores.
Yeah, so it's like we're saying, okay, did who because people can pre-order
Okay.
or Shopify
Got it.
website, which is, we use it, it's a whole workaround.
Got it.
But so they can order, be like, I want to pick up at, your Palo Alto store, 5 dozen cinnamon raisin bagels tomorrow. So we need to see that and make
Yeah.
it happen. And then it goes off to that dough goes to the store and
Yeah.
all these things happen. So yeah, there's a
Okay.
whole thing it's a whole kludge system I had come up with some years ago, and it works. And I feel
Hmm.
like that it's not like so horrible because I have like better reports in Shopify spits out this thing. So then it's kind of like a copy and paste. So it's not,
Hmm.
as terrible as it sounds. I realize as I put in, it's not like we're just sitting around typing
Hmm.
numbers, but there's definitely, it's not the best.
Hmm.
It's there's a lot of room for improvement. And then even
Yeah.
actually, I wonder if, if we could have what we also do, this makes me think I should, because I have not really gotten into AI at all yet, and I would like to. Things like what we do is we're also saying, okay, what was pre-ordered, and also what do we think? Because we have to make the dough a day ahead. So
Hmm.
like right now we're saying, okay, we need to make all the dough today for tomorrow. So in the morning
Hmm.
it's okay, the order's cut off. And then we say, okay, well, what did we make last what did we sell last Thursday? Or like and do we want to adjust? We'll take last Thursday's numbers as a baseline. Do we want to
Hmm.
adjust up and down? You know, so ideally something we could do some like predictive thing, either like trends, like this store is a little weak, let's give them less. It could pull in even like another database of like kind of logged unsold bagels and adjust, and even
Hmm.
like to pull in a weather report, because if it's raining the sales are a lot lower.
Oh, interesting.
So like, right now it is all this like black box, and it's kind of like, the person
Hmm.
who's doing it is just kind of going by feel, but it would be
Hmm.
interesting and could be really nice to run like using actual sales trends
Hmm.
and pulling data to make something a lot stronger.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that that all sounds within the scope of what we've seen other brands wanting to automate. Um, and yeah, particularly kind of, the production planning piece is critical. So I'm curious, so when you're doing the production planning, do you have another tool that you're then updating so that the team knows like that they're using to track kind of their production runs and things like this? Or
Yeah, so
is that?
this is something. So it's the production manager basically takes all these
Hmm.
numbers off Shopify, pastes them in Excel where they need to go, like makes a new copies a new Excel
Hmm.
sheet.
Hmm.
It's that and anyway, not janky. And then paste the numbers where they should go. The production
Hmm.
looks at what like wholesale orders, what we should do for wholesale tomorrow. Basically says, okay, also we're also going to make 2,000 everything bagels for
Hmm.
the and then also like says, okay, what did we sell last week? But the weather, I don't think it's going to be good weather tomorrow. I'll drop the numbers a bit and just kind of wings it, and then basically publishes that, prints it out, and then it basically then produces uh an order, a sheet for the dough team,
Hmm.
then make that dough today, and for the bakers to have for how to for telling all the shops how they should bake off the bagels and what flavors, and which ones are like urgent because they're for like earlier orders and whatnot. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's a
Okay.
lot of kludged Excel.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, we see a ton of that. We work with brands that range from being startups all the way to brands that are doing over 100 million a year. And all of the large, and it's crazy to see them all on spreadsheets. Even
Mhm.
the ones that are doing over 100 million in revenue, they're all on spreadsheets. In a lot of cases, they're paying large amounts of money to NetSuite for their ERP. But actually all the operations teams are still doing it in spreadsheets. All the forecasting, production planning, we still see happening in spreadsheets, which is, interesting how that stays the same throughout that whole trajectory. So yeah, this kind of manual entry into the production planner and the steps that follow is something that we see very often um, across brands of all sizes. I think, you'd think many times that these large brands would have it fully automated, but they actually don't at all. It's quite shocking. Um, yeah. Are there any other people here who are entering data manually into their inventory system? Um, I'm curious, Sasha, like on your end, is that something that you're doing on spreadsheets, on Sin 7? Any data that you're currently entering manually?
No, we probably should be. We're not using Fin 7. Our co-packers
Mhm.
also are 3PL, but we've
Mhm.
definitely had some communication issues in terms of the orders going through and streamlining that process and just figuring out also how much coolant to use
Mhm.
based on how many days they're shipping, based on how many units are being shipped.
Mhm. Okay, interesting. So you're not using it, like you're not having to track inventory on an Excel because your co-packer is doing all of it, and so it's kind of connecting
No, we're not
information.
even tracking inventory. So
Oh,
just beep,
interesting.
beep, beep, back that up.
Okay, okay. Yeah, right.
I have no idea how many Popeyes are sitting behind me in the warehouse right now.
Yeah, well,
I know
I
I
think
should.
now is a good time to be thinking about that for 2026. I mean, I think we see
Yes.
this across the board. A lot of companies, now is when they're evaluating and setting things up, because there's like a bit of a lull period we see where a lot of the, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is done. A lot of the things that are happening between now and the end of the year are often already kind of set. Um, so I would say, for anyone here, which it kind of seems like, that's why you're at this call, now is definitely a good time to be evaluating and getting things set up for beginning of January.
Do you
So
do that, or are you recommending that we use Sin 7?
so we do, I mean, besides the automations that I'm talking about here, we actually do have our own inventory and traceability software. So for example, as I mentioned, we connected at Naturally New York at the pitch that you did. So for example, Lupini, they're using our inventory software for all of their purchasing, production, all of their inventory management, sales. So that's one of the startups that we work with on there. And that tool is specialized for tracking lot numbers, expiration dates, all of that.
I just put
So
the
maybe the
in the
better person
chat
to be
too,
having this
Kaizentree.
conversation with is the founder of our co-packer and 3PL.
I mean, we work with brands primarily. Yeah.
Okay, because they don't have any kind of system set up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think, one thing for everyone here is you'll all we're all gonna kind of we do a lot of kind of system audits now this time of year. We're usually it's something that we charge $1,500 for. But for everyone here, we're gonna give, a free 30-minute kind of audit that we can do one-on-one. And so, there's a lot of different things that we can go into deeper depth for each one of you. I don't want to take everyone's time talking about, going deep into specific examples. But I will send a link where you guys can, if you're interested, go deeper on the specifics of what you've mentioned here. And Emily, in your case, whether it's kind of some of the updates on your Excel and your production, Sasha, in your case, it could be something around tracking inventory, if that's something you do want to get started on. And then for everyone else here, for the specifics that you have within your operations, more than happy to go into that in more depth.
Do you guys provide baby steps? Because like it's one thing to go from a Excel spreadsheet to
Hmm.
like a full-blown inventory system or tracking
Yeah.
system or, streamlining your pipeline
Hmm.
and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean that's a big reason why any companies will use us is because they see us as their kind of their tech and ops partner. In the sense that, we kind of handhold throughout all the setup phase, whether you're wanting to set up a multi-step agent like this to automate your purchase order processing, or whether it's, wanting to set up an inventory management software. But we only do that for our own systems. We don't do that for other systems. And we also work with a ton of fractional operations people who we can refer you to if you're looking for more strategic consulting. Ours is just on the implementation side. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Sasha?
that makes perfect sense. I actually just met with Dan from Pale Blue Dot.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We know them very well. Yeah, yeah. Ryan on that team is very good too.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. So there's someone that you would meet with for strategic stuff. We're someone you would meet with when you want to get an inventory system set up and automate certain points of your operations. So that's something that we can chat more about.
Sounds
If you're
expensive.
interested. So
Just
it's
start
not,
bringing
I
on all
mean,
these people.
it's not, I mean, it depends on the flow. Um, I'll say it also like again, we're kind of going into a couple things here. For our inventory software, for startups, that's just $100 a month. It's like its own startup tier. Um, and and there's other pricing for larger businesses, but for startups and early stage companies, that's what it is. And then for the workflows, that's something that we can go into um, if you want to have a chat about that.
I think, Sasha, the biggest thing probably for you and other businesses that are listening on their spreadsheets is probably that answer, like just knowing how much inventory you have, right? And so it's
Mhm.
like as you do a purchase order or in not a purchase, but like an order for your manufacturer, and they come back and say like, all right, we made X number of product, and then your sales are linked into the system as well, and then so those get deducted down. And then every month, like, all right, we made 500 and we sold 250, and so we have 250 left. And then ideally that should equate. Sometimes it might be here off here or there, but even when you're doing like samples and marketing collateral, you're like putting those orders in, so it's deducting from the inventory, so that you should be close to those numbers. And then every so often you can do an audit to have like, hey, count how many we have left. You can understand if there's any discrepancies or not. So like that's the basic part, is just like, hey, we ordered 500, did you make 500 or did you make 300, and then we have a problem.
So ideally, though, if everything goes through the Shopify platform, this is able to like rectify those numbers. So if I put in samples through my Shopify platform, that'll deduct it from this other platform's
Yep.
inventory.
Yep. And if you sell on Amazon or Fair or wholesale, all of that is also connected.
Do you guys pull from ShipStation?
Depending on what you need, we can check that out too. Yeah, we're connected to several 3PLs.
Yeah, because I'd want to give you all the platforms and then have you sort of litigate like which ones are best to pull from so that you don't duplicate
Yeah,
orders.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'll say like, for anyone here that's looking for inventory software, there's so many options. Where our software is differentiated is in that it's actually built from an operational perspective and a business owner perspective, not from an accounting and finance perspective, which is what we see all of essentially all of the pre-existing tools be based on. And so it's a lot, let's say, easier to get onboarded on and to use. So it's like an easy ramp into all the kind of getting access to all the information that Jordan mentioned.
I
Um,
think, Sasha, for your product too, since it's frozen and a lot of food products and maybe like things like bagel stuff, like having lot tracking and best by dates for each production, so you can say like, hey, we have X number of cases of this product that's going to expire in 2 months or a month or a week. Like we need to sell or dispose of that right away or deduct to it, and you have the insight to know what to do with it. That's kind of like the second level after you just start getting information of knowing what you have. It's really knowing, best by days when things are expiring. And the brilliance is like you can just do that at the same time as you're getting the inventory come through.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful because one of our SKUs, the
yeah.
Shroom's Gone Wild, we did run into them not expiring, but their best by date was ending.
Coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's on our inventory software. That's like it's primarily focused, like it's most deeply built out into all these things because we work with a ton of organic certified brands that get audited. And so that entire audit is on that system. And so what it means for any company is that they'll have like we have best in class tracking of lot numbers, traceability, product recall scenarios, and everything that you need. And so we only really work with food and beverage brands because of that.
Okay, thanks for letting me ball hog this conversation.
Oh,
Cool.
good.
I mean, we have a couple more minutes left as we're wrapping up here.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other last minute questions or want to run a scenario by Marcos?
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, this is Scott Fassett with
Oh, hey, Scott.
Mari Mix. Hey, how are you? With Mari Mix Crunch Bake Snack Mix. Sorry I'm not on video. I'm actually in my car driving to the Nosh live conference right now.
Oh,
But
fun.
found this to be super, super helpful. Question I have is about confidentiality and uploading and sharing proprietary company information with AI platforms. Can you speak to that a little bit and
Yep.
just some of the things that we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, so I think, we see this a lot with the bigger brands that we work with, where that is a significant concern. It's also a reason why a lot of brands might not want to be feeding in any data into like through a kind of a GPT directly. And so that's why the larger brands want to work with us to implement their operational workflow automations. Because we have those data security kind of blockers in place already. But that's definitely a concern that we see very often, and it's a reason why people are often concerned about putting their data into ChatGPT directly, and why
So
they won't
Marcos,
work with a product like us.
if they're to use like work with you directly,
Hmm.
um, why doesn't that data get uploaded to like testing servers and things like that? Like what's
I
going
mean, so we host everything on our own servers, and we're not sharing any data directly with these models. They're not retaining the data. Essentially, they're just passing it through. And there's agreements that we have set up. We're pending certain kind of different classifications for our data security, but we already maintain the highest standard across both our inventory software and importantly on the workflows that we do. So any data that you feed in through an automation that we're running is not being used to train any model. Whereas any data that you're feeding into GPT directly, or any other chatbot for that matter, is almost always being used to train. Um, so any data that we process is not being used to train and is treated as confidential.
perfect?
Does
Cool.
that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the things I've noticed on ChatGPT is there's like a, I don't know what they call it, like a company portal or something that you can set
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
I can go into a bit more depth on that later. Most of the automations that we do are outside of ChatGPT, where we use Claude very often as well. So I'm sure they're constantly pushing updates. It might be possible already on the company side to not have them train on your data. But I do know, depending on the level of security you want to implement, um, if you want to have like SOC 2 compliance, that's not something that we see these chatbots delivering on.
Okay, thank you. Super helpful.
Yeah, and I can follow up later with some more information here too.
Thanks.
Um,
Awesome.
and then I put a link there for anyone who does want to go into depth or have a one-on-one on any kind of inventory and operational challenges or things they want to automate. We spoke through a few examples here, but our team can go into depth on more of these things, whether you're interested in setting up an inventory and traceability software, in the case of what, Sasha was mentioning, or in the case of automating, things like what Emily was saying about getting Shopify information into spreadsheets. We, happy to go into depth on both of those things.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Well, Marcos, this is great. Thanks so much for going through all the details on here. If you do
Yep.
have questions for Marcos or want to talk through any of your specific situations, his link to his calendar is in the chat. So go ahead and click that. You can go ahead and set up a time with him to discuss how AI can best work for your business and automate things. And with that too, we'll also be sending out the recording of this probably in the next day or so. So you can go back and rewatch anything if you need for that as well. But Marcos, just wanted to thank you and thanks so much for showing up and thanks everyone for the great questions and conversation. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome being here. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And feel free to reach out if you need any kind of advice on this side. And we'll be sending an email summarizing all the points that we discussed and with some links to resources as well.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks everyone. Have a great Easter Wednesday.
Thank you all.
All right.